When I come up against something in life I don't understand, I turn to stories. Now, you'd think in a book with a title like The World's Best Fairy Tales that there'd be something here to help frame this story, the one you're watching right now. But I couldn't find anything to draw any real meaningful connection to, so I went ahead and made my own. This story is a coming-of-age story of transformation and dreams. But unlike Jack slaying the giant, Cinderella running away with a handsome king, or Hansel and Gretel pushing the old witch into the oven, this tale doesn't have a happy ending.
I forgot to introduce the character to this story. My name's Braxton Haugen, and I make autobiographical movies about my life. This just might be the hardest movie I've ever had to make.
You know what college does for you? Makes you really smart, man. All you kids want to talk in the back of the class. Not me, I listened. I was a hall monitor. This was meant to be.
So, I guess the most sensible place to start would be back in Los Angeles.
How you doing? Hi.
Starting college next week is a big change for me. And to be honest, I'm going into these next few years as a student, not exactly sure what I want to get out of it. But at the same time, I'm absolutely certain of what it is I want out there.
And there went all my hopes and dreams. I start the year here, riding this creative high coming off working with Colin and Samir. I'm unsure what I want from school, but I have a lot of optimism that this is the chapter in my life where I can finally find my people and learn in an environment that is all about taking in new information. And almost immediately after spending time on campus, I hit this wall. To keep a long and confusing realization short, it felt like High School 2.0 with more conceited teachers. And from that point, the downward trajectory becomes the narrative of my freshman experience. I thought about throwing in the towel after finishing fall term and shifting all of my focus to making movies. But I'm no quitter. I talked myself into seeing this as me being there to do a job, and I know how to do that. So with Kanye's seminal 2004 record, The College Dropout, playing as the soundtrack, I saw it through. And there were moments of spikes, brief glimpses that maybe I had something to get out of business or art, or telling myself that maybe I'm just here for the material to tell these stories. But they all led to dead ends sooner or later, and it was back to freefall. You see, I had a blind spot, a lesson I'd yet to learn. What I came to realize was the more I invested in the path of what would lead to success in the classroom, the less I had to give of myself to the path I knew I belonged. I made myself a promise that I wouldn't let school get in the way of making movies, but I did. My biggest fear about going to college came true. It amounted to a, frankly, embarrassing year of false starts. I told myself next term will be different. I told myself if I announce my company, school will have to take a back seat. I told myself if I put it in a movie, I'll have to follow through on my word. Every broken promise to myself raised to the water level where the creative one inside me was that didn't know how to swim yet. And before I knew it, the piece of me I needed most was drowning.
Waterboarding.
Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away.
It took me the first couple terms to understand that pushing back against the authority above me was ultimately only going to lead to self-inflicted wounds. So I stepped down from whatever I thought I was trying to prove. I spoke their words, even if I didn't believe them. Even if I knew I had somewhere else to be, just to see if maybe it'd change things. And you know what? I'm ending my last term with straight A's and 17 credits. I got an award from the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art on campus for research or something.
I don't know, I didn't even go to the ceremony.
Now, I don't know if this reveals some deeper problem, but the better I did in their eyes, the worse I felt about myself and my own. By the time May came around, it had started to sink in that art wasn't going to work out either. The silver lining, if you could even call it that, was I finally felt like I'd found the words to express the distance between where I am and where I want to be. A realization that I don't feel like I'm becoming anything here. At least, nothing I believe in. Journalism and business and film and anthropology and art, they all just kind of blended together. I spent this whole year trying to find a place to fit, and all it really did was take away from what I had to give to what I care about most in life. I'd known another world, outside of this one, before I got here. I felt things in that one. I had a home there.
Braxton went to bed last night with a plan to build a ship, pirate ship, and set it on fire. And this cat has a plan.
Golden boats float down a river of sighs.
Oh, they're shooting at it.
Rain on the street is falling. Tears in my eyes. Wings of an angel open in the dark sky.
To be honest, I've just carried a lot of insecurity and even attempting to share this story and feeling self-conscious that I even have the chance at getting an education, and here I am just disavowing the whole thing. The last thing I want to do is to sound like I'm sitting here taking for granted the tremendous amount of luck that I'm starting my adult life with on my side. Before I even lifted a finger to chase my dream, before I even knew how to, I was already the luckiest kid in the world. Being born in the time I was, in the country I was, to the family I was, even with all the shit that I didn't know what to do with, at my lowest, there has been nothing in front of me that hasn't been able to be overcome. Not once has the understanding wavered that I've been afforded a golden ticket.
Now that all the tickets have been found, I don't have to hide them anymore.
Here's a not so comprehensive breakdown of everything I learned as a freshman at the University of Oregon.
Where did you go?
Now, I'd stop short of saying the majority of my conversations with other students here somehow led to the conversation of drug use, but in all honesty, the scales are pretty close. And look, I have nothing against that, I don't. It's just my whole philosophy at this age is that Dre line off Express Yourself.
Sure, I don't smoke weed or sex, cause it's known to give a brother brain damage, and brain damage on the mic don't manage.
It's nothing personal, it really isn't. It's just one of the many roadblocks that stood in the way of me being able to connect with anybody this year. What are you looking at? So yesterday I get this DM from a kid who goes here on Twitter. And he said that he's dropping out of school today, wanted to talk to me about it. Some sort of crazy opportunity to leave school and do something. I have no idea who this kid is, but giving it a chance. So in the event that this ends in me having some sort of fatal wound, make sure this footage gets to someone who knows how to edit. That kid, he dropped out of school that morning, told me a story about getting out from under what was holding him back, something about an adventure to find himself. He even invited me to come with him.
I wish you the best, dude. Easy on the psychedelics.
But he was on his own way.
Take care.
And I'm on mine. One girl made a whole little movie giving me her number. That's amazing. So if you reached out to me this year and said nice things, thank you. And if for some reason I didn't get back to you about something you wanted, apologies. I'm working, going to school full time, and trying to pour everything else I have into making movies. It's just that I don't have the time to meet with everyone who once helped starting a YouTube channel, or in the case of the more risque DMs, the people who wanted to fuck me. I don't mean to sound ungrateful. It's just the work has to come first, now more than ever. This winter, the power at home went out for a couple days. I listened to Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs biography. It had a profound impact on me. Power's been out all day. Snowstorm brought everything down. than walking around with flashlights and no internet.
I started listening to Bob Dylan when I finished it, and for the last few months, his songs have felt more like that of friends to me than music. So I took a class this term about the music of the Woodstock generation. It was the closest I felt to getting something out of school. Whatever sparked my interest in class, I went twice as deep on the internet, filled my head with as much as I could. I realized how much Dylan stole from Woody Guthrie when he was my age, so I found a book about how to steal like an artist. I read it front to back, twice in one day. The simplicity of it all reached deep into my mind and connected dots I didn't even know were there. And that night, I wrote for hours about all the movies I want to make once I can put all this behind me. Now, this is the part in the story where loose ends are tied up, issues are resolved, and I come to terms with the changes I was going through, which is true, I guess. I couldn't tell you, though, at what gain, at least not with any real confidence. Truth be told, I don't know how this story ends. I don't have a good sense of how big or how confined it is. What I do know is that these are the most formative years of my life, my last year as a teenager, the first of my 20s. And it's funny, because for the first time in my life, I don't know if I'm at the end of something or the beginning. I've just let my mind get tangled up in it all this year. Maybe I'll come to see this year as a temporary obstruction on my way to a place I actually believe in, on the path to something great. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll grow to understand all this as something that fits into some bigger story I'm just not equipped to tell yet. And perhaps all this self-imposed pain was just that. Squarely wasted on impatience and misguided intuition. But maybe I'm right. And if so...
I don't want to wait anymore. I'm tired of looking for answers. Take me someplace where there's music and there's laughter. I don't know if I'm scared of dying, but I'm scared of living too fast, too slow. Regret, remorse, hold on. No, I've gotta go. There's no starting over, no new beginnings. Time raises on. Just gotta keep on keeping on. Gotta keep on going, looking straight out on the road. Can't worry about what's behind you, what's coming for you further up the road. Try not to hold on to what is gone. I try to do right what is wrong. I try to keep on keeping on. Yeah, I just keep on keeping on. I hear a voice calling out for me. These shackles I made in a town to be free, be it free.